for the May 1st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, James City County. Ms. Istenis, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Allman.
Here.
Dr. Allman represents the Roberts District. Mr. May.
Here.
Mr. May represents the Powhatan District. Mr. Everson.
Here.
Mr. Everson represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Rogers.
Here.
Mr. Rogers represents the Berkeley District. Mr. Haldeman.
Here.
Mr. Haldeman is an at-large member and is also vice chair and will be chairing the meeting this evening. Mr. Polster.
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District, and Mr. O'Connor. Mr. O'Connor is absent tonight. He is an at-large member and is chair of the commission. I'm Susan Istenis, Director of Planning for the county, and it's my pleasure to serve as the secretary to the commission. Sitting to my left is Ms. Liz Parman, Deputy County Attorney. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We now have time for public comment. This is a time when you can comment on anything not subject to a public hearing this evening. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Ms. Istenis, do we have any speaker cards?
We do not.
Okay. Would anybody like to address the commission at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports of the commission. Mr. Rogers, any report?
We did not meet this month.
Great. The policy committee did not meet this month. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are determined to be non-controversial. However, a planning commissioner can pull any item for discussion. There is one item for consideration, and that is the minutes to the April 3rd, 2024 meeting. Would anybody like to pull that item? If not, I may have a...
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 3rd, 2024 regular meeting.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to the first public hearing. That is rezoning 24-0005, Clark Talley residential staff presentation. Mr. Weissong.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the Commission. Mr. Von Pauler, Administrator of Neighborhood Development, has applied on behalf of the county to rezone approximately 15.82 acres from the R2 General Residential Zoning District to the R3 Residential Redevelopment District with proffers. This proposal would allow for up to 47 residential dwellings consisting of 27 single-family detached units and 20 single-family attached units, resulting in a density of 3.02 units per acre. The subject parcels are inside the primary service area and designated for low-density residential on the adopted comprehensive plan. Single-family detached and attached housing are both recommended uses within the low-density residential designation, and furthermore, the comprehensive plan strongly supports the provision of affordable and workforce housing within the county. The applicant has proffered that 100% of the proposed units will be affordable and that these units will be constructed consistent with the county's approved character design guidelines. Furthermore, staff has found that the proposed development will not negatively impact the county's character or existing facilities, including the school system. Overall, staff finds this proposal to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the surrounding development. As such, planning staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of this proposal to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed proffers. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time, and we do have Vaughn here tonight, who will also be presenting. So thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. Could you explain, at least for me, somewhat simply, what would happen if the zoning remained R2? Like when I do those calculations in my head, I'm coming out at about the same unit. I understand no duplexes maybe, but if it was R2, what would happen to the project?
Well, essentially, under the R2 zoning district, the layout of the project couldn't continue. The R3 zoning district has a lot of flexibility built into it because it was designed to help for redevelopment of the property and to support affordable housing. So if we were to remain in the R2 district, I don't think the current concept could continue. There's also things like there's not a minimum lot size requirement on the R3 district, so there's more flexibility there. I haven't run the calcs on the density that's permitted right now compared to R3, but I could look that up after the meeting and send it to you.
I don't think I need it. I was just trying to, without getting into which particular piece of acres can't be developed or what could, I was trying to figure out what large gate would open by changing from R2 to R3, but I think you've helped me get there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did I hear you say that 100% of the homes will be affordable?
Correct. Yes. What's been proffered is that 100% of the units will be offered at a specific price. It states that they will be sold to families earning 30 to 120% of area median income, and that at least 25% of all the housing units shall be initially sold to families earning 30 to 80% of AMI. And that affordability definition comes from, in part, the R3 redevelopment policy that's referenced within the zoning ordinance.
So 120% is still part of our definition of affordable.
Yes, that's referenced within the R3 redevelopment policy, that the amount of density that's permitted in this district is based on. Excuse me.
I thought the Workforce Housing Task Force redefined it as 100%, but anyway, that's, the AMI is $100,000
It
average,
is
I think.
$100,700.
Yeah, so $120,000. Okay. And $425,000 house is deemed affordable.
It would fall within the range for 120,000, the 120%, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Applicant's presentation. Mr. Pollard, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Vaughn Pollard. I'm the James City County Neighborhood Development Administrator. I'm before you this evening to present the Clark subdivision rezoning. As you all know, the parcels that the county acquired last year with the board's permission, we went out and acquired funding from Virginia Housing to do the engineering and design. We had local dollars that we used for the acquisition of these parcels. There's 7 parcels. They're located off of Old Moortown Road. This is another illustration of the 7 parcels that we acquired. They're currently zoned R2. We're asking that they be rezoned R3 for infill development, a plat of the site. This is Clark Lane when it was originally constructed back in 1997. It was a community development block grant project it was my first job with the county. In that time, we have an issue with affordability, a driving need for affordability in the county. We have looked at this issue starting most recently in 2014 with the housing condition studies, which found that we had a need for affordability within the county. And at that time, which is now 10 years ago, we were looking at households being able to purchase homes starting at household incomes of $35,000. That has since gone up, as you can imagine. In 2017, the strategic plan that the county initiated also listed the need for affordability within it and directed the Neighborhood Development Office to work toward that. As part of that, we formed the Workforce Housing Task Force. That task force lasted 18 months with citizens appointed to it to look at different means of going after affordability in the county, looking at what the exact need was and realizing that our workforce in the county needed housing that they could afford and the impacts of that on employers within the county. The findings of the task force were incorporated into the 2045 comprehensive plan. When we became aware that the parcels were for sale and engaged with the dialogue in the seller, Marion Payne in my office worked with the seller. They initially offered the 7 parcels they were asking for $999,000. Our discussion with them, we were able to negotiate that down to $550,000, the purchase price. We then worked with the residents of the neighborhood. This is an infill development, and as you can imagine, when you are building something as intense as what we are proposing, we wanted to make sure that the surrounding residents understood what we were attempting to do, why we wanted to do it, and to get their buy-in. The proposal you see is the result of that culmination, of that outreach and discussion with the residents. We began our outreach back in November. We held 3 public meetings and also a 3-day design charrette. We procured a facilitator to work with us, with the residents. We talked to them about the idea of coming and building in what it could look like. We asked of them what they wanted and what they were willing to accept. They gave us feedback. They did not want to see tall structures. They were concerned about renting. There's already some renting going on in the neighborhood, and so they asked us not to look at that. And they also had very strong ideas about how Catalpa Lane could be treated. They did not want to see that be a through street for fear that people would travel at a high rate of speed, because that's a pretty, as it's shown as a paper street, it's a pretty straight shot. Taking that input into mind, working with our designer and engineer, we came up with this layout. I should also mention that in partnership with this project, a very strong partner is Habitat for the Peninsula and Greater Williamsburg. We have worked with them in many projects going back as far as, well, actually going back to housing in Forest Glen, but we had a very strong relationship with them in the Ironbound Square development, and then later in the Forest Heights and Neighbors Drive development. So what we propose, given the funding that we currently secured, are that the units you see in yellow on the left here, which is actually to the southwest, those are 4 duplexes totaling 8 units. We will contract with Habitat, and they will build those structures. And then at a later date, we will procure the additional funding necessary to do the infrastructure for the larger 37 remaining units. Here's another rendition of how that same layout would look. You can see here, this is the Catalpa paper street. We stop it here so that it doesn't continue here. It actually comes in here. This new street, would come in at the existing tie-in with Old Moortown and bring you into the new residency. And there would also be a connection here with existing Curry Drive. The thinking there is that more people coming off of Old Moortown, which we expect would be the primary means people would travel to the subdivision, it would bring them in either here or here, and they would not then disrupt the residents who are existing back here, and it would be an opportunity to cut down on traffic as it travels through the existing layout of Curry Drive and Clark Lane. So in the past, for me, 29 years, but with the Housing Office of James City County, the county has developed neighborhoods. This is an example of a structure the county built. This is located in the Ironbound Square neighborhood. This is also located in Ironbound Square, and so is this structure here. These are the type of structures we envision constructing in the Clark subdivision. This is a structure that Habitat in our Forest Heights development constructed. This is the first 3D printed residential structure in the United States. And so our Habitat affiliate is a very energetic, forward-thinking, they're on the cutting edge of their working with residents, working with their clientele, and in construction. This is also an example of a Habitat house. This structure is also located on Forest Heights. Again, I put it here as an example of the type of units that we're hoping to construct, and showing you the quality and value of what Habitat can bring to a development such as this. If you have any other questions, I stand ready to answer.
Any questions of the applicant?
I have a quick question. Who's the market for this? The reason I ask is, like I thought there was a song today about the 16 kids coming out of 47 houses. So who is the market?
So primarily, we're thinking workforce. This is located adjacent to, at Old Moortown, and you all, I'm sure, are aware that adjacent to that this is the ring road for Centerra. And so we're hoping that a number of people who work at Centerra would be enticed to purchase here. And so we're not talking about surgeons. What we're thinking of are the phlebotomists, the cafeteria staff, the janitorial staff, that this would be something that people in those positions would be interested in. So we're pricing, as we've said, we're pricing between, Mr. Haldeman brought up 120. 120 would be at the high end. I think we're going to see, specifically, I think we're targeting more between 80 and 100. Habitat is going to be looking at between 40 and 80 of AMI. And even though Habitat is starting with these, it's possible that they'll pick up some number of the additional units in here also. The structures that you see us, most of the funding that we get, we're dealing with households at 80% of AMI. I did not want to have a concentration of low and moderate income in this, and so it's possible that maybe some of these larger lots may get at 100. They may go up to 120, one or two of them. But the primary thing here is that I feel that most of this is going to be at 100 and below.
Is it demographically going to be families or?
Yeah, so we're thinking that most of these units will be between 12 and 1,400. There may be one or two that will be lower than that. So they're going to be 2, 3 bedroom, bath and a half at a minimum. So we think it's going to be families or it may be retirees. We don't envision right now too many 2-story houses, but something like that. In fact, this one doesn't have, that's a single story and this is single story. So there'll be a mix.
I have a couple questions. So for the 3 meetings that you had for the community engagement when you were getting buy-in, were those well attended? Like what was the typical attendance for those meetings?
So they were pretty well attended. I will say when you look at public meetings, this was one of the more well-attended meetings. I think we topped out with around 18 people, and then our lowest was probably somewhere around 5 or 7. Fewer people came to during the days of the charrette, and I think we had about 8 show up at the last day of the charrette to see the final layout. We did outreach. These meetings were held in the evenings. I think we probably had 2 meetings where we were above 11 people showing up.
So just one other question. Is there like an HOA or any restrictions that will be attached to these houses when it's built?
As a subdivision development, there will be an HOA.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
I had a couple questions, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood the 25% of these facilities would be at 30 to 80%. And so what I was struggling with in my question to the staff, which they couldn't answer, was the price point. And so with the Habitat for Humanity for the 4 duplexes that are there, what are they looking at in terms of the price point?
So I'm lucky that I have LaToya Tyler here, who's the Chief Operation Officer for Peninsula Habitat. LaToya, would you mind standing? Help.
Hi. The price point will probably be, so the way we sell our homes is it's never more than 30% of the person's income. So we're thinking, a person making $35,000, $40,000, depending on their debt, can afford $120,000, $150,000 house. But again, it wouldn't be more than 30% of their income, and we'll qualify them that way.
I think I understand that. What I'm trying to figure out is if 25% is going to be 40 to 80%.
Correct.
Right. And your 8 units are all going to be 30%?
No, our units are going to be 40 to 80%
okay,
AMI.
40 to 80, but so So you're,
But 40% is about 36,000 for a family of three.
oh, no, I understand that, and that's what I was trying to get a feel with, because I'm familiar with the work that you did in Forest Glen.
Yes.
And I know what you've done with the price point of those so they didn't exceed it, so that you
Yeah.
could keep it in there. But it's unclear, at least for the totality of this project, what that was going to be. And so I was
Yeah.
trying to focus in on that 30 to 80% and what the price point was. And to Mr. Holloman's point here, you know, a $425,000 home
Yeah,
at 120 is not affordable housing.
Correct.
And so
For
if we're
us.
going to attract the type of people that he's talking about, like the phlebotomists that commute in from all different places, and it's right next to it,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my follow-on question then is that's the Habitat for Humanity. Can you talk to me about the other folks?
So it's typical that the others will be FHA, and we usually secure that through the Virginia Housing and some of their product, their Spark product, which allows you to do mortgages at, typically they come in at 2% below whatever the market's doing. Those households are probably going to be more toward 80%. I don't know that it's practical for us to look at households at 30% being homeowners. I think it's very hard. One, if you look at what 30% is, and then you're trying to make it so that those people aren't paying more than 30% of their mortgage, and also being able to maintain that structure, then it's not likely. Typically within housing, we're looking at 30% being subsidized housing, and that's not what we're proposing here.
I think I understand that. And your financing then is through the FHA,
Right.
which then gives you the financing to build the stuff right up front.
Right.
So that you're not going to take a lot of cost up front. But the other thing that I think, if I understand the way you've done business before with the Forest Glen, is that the county going to hold a second mortgage
Yes, it
for it?
will.
And so that, just like with the Habitat for Humanity, if the person sells it, any real equity then goes back to the
To the county.
to the Habitat.
Well,
in
for
this
Habitat,
particular-
theirs,
particular
yes.
case. And so, given the financing, the cost of the land, the design, and everything like you're doing, you're able to build a house that may be in this price point for both these projects. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. Habitat is a different structure. They have different financing that they're able to bring. Plus, they're able to go out and get financing for the actual construction.
Right.
And a lot of that is donated. And then you have the sweat equity. So theirs is a different model, which allows them to do deeper affordability than what we would be able to do.
Well, I know
Which is
the
why
FHA
we want to partner with Habitat.
I know that the FHA process is rather lengthy, and I wish you all the success in the world to be able to do that, sir.
Tell
Thank you.
people it's not rocket science. It's just housing.
Thank you.
I've just got a quick follow-up to that, actually. So because the houses are designated sort of different ranges, so there are different ranges of income that will be in different sections. You've got the Habitat range, you've got the range for the other buildings.
Well, when you say in different sections as far as the cost, but
Yeah.
not necessarily in where they're located.
Right, okay, sure. So within that range, how do you determine the distribution of people that fall, for instance, on the lower end of the range versus the higher end of the range? Is there any process by which?
So the housing office maintains a waiting list of persons who are interested in owning, and they go through our housing program where they are first-time home buyers. And so that will be the list from which we draw from.
Okay,
And so those persons will come pre-qualified, having gone through that process for the mortgages that we have, the funding that we have available.
so there's no kind of, I guess, quota of any kind, like we want this number of people who are kind of in the lower end of the range versus this number of residents who are in the higher end of the range?
No, we've not set up a quota to say that we're going to have so many at 60, so many at 70, and
Right.
so on.
Okay. It depends on the applicants you have.
Correct.
Okay.
Just as
Thank
a
you.
follow-on, you have specified the 25% will be in the 30 to 80%.
That's correct.
Right, yeah, thanks, Frank, yeah.
Mr. Paula, how do you assure that people won't flip these houses and that what starts off as an affordable house?
So that's where the soft second comes in. We retain a soft second, and we are looking at, because a lot of interest in this particular development is that we have as deep and as long-term affordability as we can provide. And so in the past, for instance, when we worked with units in Newtown, those had 15-year soft seconds. And so what that means is there's a second deed of trust that is attached as a lien on the property. so that if anyone were to sell, they would owe that money back to the county. And so that money would come back and we would revolve it for future developments and future sales.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have time now for public comment on this subject. Ms. Lystenis, do we have any speaker cards?
We do. Kim Orthner? No, okay.
Thank you.
Marcellus Snipes?
Marcellus is with the school.
He's at the school.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Latoya Tyler, if you want to say anything additional? No? Okay. No, then we're good.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing. Open for discussion or a motion from my fellow commissioners.
Well, I just wanted to comment and congratulate the county for taking this step and for the work that Mr. Pollard has done to get us to this point. And for the Human Habitat folks for pitching in like you have in the past with some of your projects. So kudos and praises to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors for JCC zoning 24-005, Clark Talley residential rezoning.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Lystenis, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Dr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Everson?
Aye.
Mr. May?
Aye.
Mr. Holdeman?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Second public hearing tonight is rezoning 24-0002 and SUP 24-0002, Bright Beginnings Pre-K Center at Clara Byrd Baker Elementary School. Mr. Lepacker.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the Commission. Ms. Holly Adams, on behalf of Alpha Corporation, has applied on behalf of Williamsburg-James City County Public Schools to rezone approximately 1.98 acres located at 3175 Ironbound Road from R8 Rural Residential to PL Public Lands. Ms. Adams has also applied for a corresponding special use permit to allow a 41,326 square foot pre-K center at 3175 and 3131 Ironbound Road. Staff finds the proposed conditions will mitigate impacts to surrounding properties and development. Staff also finds that this proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning and development and is consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan, zoning ordinance, and the primary principles for the Five Forks area. Section 15.2-2232 of the Code of Virginia states, in part, that no public facility be allowed unless the Planning Commission finds the location of the facility substantially consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Taking all factors favorable into account, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find this application consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you all for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for staff, and the applicant, as well as a representative from the school board, have a presentation as well.
Any questions?
I have
Mr.
one.
Everson.
On this traffic of level of service, there's two categories here, build with redistricting and build with no redistricting. Is that standard on the adequate school facilities test?
So the original application and traffic study included a redistricting that has not yet happened yet. And staff wanted to be sure that there was both, that the traffic study included both the scenario of a potential redistricting in the future, as well as the current situation with the capacity, or with the districting of the schools remaining the same as what they currently are.
So this means that if they don't do a redistricting, then the Harris Teeter driveway, I guess, movement would go down, I say. But is the redistricting of schools a standard thing on the adequate school facilities test?
I would have to double check on that. I do believe that it was that staff requested that that a non-redistricting option was included because the original submittal did include a redistricting. As to whether or not this is
I
standard
see.
procedure, I would have to
Okay.
double check on that for you.
I'll ask school people. I was just curious. That's all from me. Because I think this is wonderful.
Anyone else? Questions? I'd like somebody please to walk me through the traffic flow on this. Maybe, would it be you or the folks from the school division, or, I just couldn't quite picture it on the master plan for some reason.
Gotcha. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. You're looking, I guess, to
Buses come in one way and
yes.
there's parking further back also, and yeah, here we go, thank you.
So I would defer to the applicant
Okay, we can wait for that then.
regarding
Great.
this or regarding the specifics of the traffic flow. However, I do know that the area back here, the road back here, would be a one-way road that would be designed specifically for bus drop-off.
And the bus would come in on that road or go out on that road?
So they would, the buses would enter through the existing school entrance, and then they
Gotcha.
would enter the bus drop-off road right here and then exit onto Ironbound.
I can follow the rest of it. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions?
That just brought up another question. Is besides the bus traffic, how about the car traffic for drop-off and pickup?
I believe I'll defer to the applicant
Okay.
regarding the specifics of things like employee parking and drop-off and pickup.
Thank you. With that, we'll open the public hearing. And would the applicant might like to make a presentation? Good evening.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone. My name is Holly Adams. I'm a senior civil engineer with Alpha Corporation. My business address is 295 Bendix Road, Suite 340 in Virginia Beach. On behalf of Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools, we are incredibly excited to present two new Bright Beginnings preschool centers to this community tonight. The first is located at Clara Byrd Baker Elementary School site, and the second, which is next on the agenda, is located at the Norge Elementary School site. I will be giving you a brief overview of the Bright Beginnings projects, and then we will follow with a presentation. We would like to start by saying that there's been a lot of stakeholder involvement from the very beginning of this project, and we do have some photos in our presentation showing some of the work sessions. And from these work sessions, guiding principles were developed in which all project decisions moving forward were based. And these guiding principles are to create a developmentally appropriate, innovative, and inclusive campus for preschoolers in Williamsburg, James City County that provides students with safe, sensory-rich interior and exterior environments that include natural light and are accessible to all. The Bright Beginnings program is a program that provides quality preschool services with play-based learning through a high-performance building incorporating natural light, child-sized spaces, and nature-based outdoor education with protected and accessible play areas. The accessibility aspect is particularly important because 63% of the Bright Beginnings students require special education due to neurodiversities. There is currently a wait list for the program, so our hope is to have both preschools constructed as soon as possible. Each preschool building is designed for 252 students, and some of those students are coming from the existing elementary schools, which now opens up capacity at the existing elementary schools for new students. The number of staff at each of the schools varies slightly based off of the percentage of special education needs and other site and operating needs. A redistricting is anticipated, and it will be implemented in the near future. With the redistricting, the construction of the new preschools, and additional capacity at the elementary schools, we are able to remove the portable trailers so that all elementary students in the district are located within buildings. We feel that this project falls right in line with the 2045 comprehensive plan and the community character corridors for each site. We would like to highlight a few key components to ensure the school's commitment to meeting these criteria during the design process. The architecture and scale of the building, materials, spacing, and color complement the area's character. Having the one-story building at the entrance of Clara Byrd Baker, that site and fronting Ironbound Road provides a transition into the campus that complements the surroundings. The project also incorporates a collaborative for high-performance schools CHIPS program that implements energy-efficient strategies geared specifically towards school students and staff, providing better learning environments. This is a student-centric program that maximizes learning. You will see in some of the images of the presentation all of the natural light throughout the buildings. And according to a U.S. Department of Education study, classrooms with daylighting had 20% better learning rates in math and 26% improved rates in reading compared to classrooms with little or no daylight. Additionally, the project site is preserving and enhancing existing buffers and providing new landscaping that complements the site as a whole to create a community campus feel. And we're also using low-impact development principles for stormwater management that blend in with the aesthetics. Both sites have established perimeter buffers, and we are only removing the mature trees necessary for the construction of the site and saving as many trees as possible. We're providing additional sidewalks and crosswalks along the perimeter, roadways, and between buildings to promote pedestrian interconnectivity and enhance a sense of community, and using different materials to clearly separate pedestrian and vehicular areas. We're using concrete for sidewalks, asphalt for drive aisles, permeable pavers for parking spaces. We are also separating the parent drop-off and visitor parking areas from the bus lanes and staff parking for safety. We did complete a queuing analysis for the parent drop-off lanes based on the number of students and ensure that we are providing the minimum length of queue. Essentially, the vehicles will stop until directed, and then 7 vehicles will pull up at a time where staff can assist the students entering and exiting the vehicles. And then once those vehicles are complete, the next set of 7 will pull up. In summary, this project will expand the Bright Beginnings program to advance the community excellence objective of the 2045 comprehensive plan. As part of the SUP application process, we did submit the TIA as discussed. It was approved by VDOT and county staff, and we do have our traffic engineer here tonight if you have any specific questions on the TIA. But first, we do have a presentation by one of the project architects to share with you this evening, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Adams? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, Commission, thank you so much. My name is Edward Evans. I'm one of the project architects working on this project. And Holly did a great job with her presentation to you, so I'm not sure how much you've seen of the building and the inside images before, but I'd like to just kind of give you a quick little presentation through what we've done. And before I start, I want to let you know that we're excited as well, working with Williamsburg, James City County for these 2 preschool facilities. It's been a really fun exercise for us. Anytime we can do something in a community like this, which is a specialty type center, it's really rewarding, and we feel good about helping out the community in this way. Ben, who's going to be changing? Okay. Basically, you know, the Bright Beginnings classrooms, we started off and we had all the stakeholders involved and had several meetings. And we went through
various iterations, getting staff input, even with the Bright Beginnings principal. And we made it such a fun thing for everybody. They seemed to enjoy it, where we would start off with little concepts of what they envisioned would be a real nice facility for them and the students. So we had a lot of images of other types of projects, and we had them come back and look at things that we posted up on boards. And we said, look, we want you to tell us what you like about these features or what you don't like, because that'll kind of give us an idea of which way you'd like to go. So that's what we did. And we really feel like they were very instrumental in helping us with the overall design and layout. And this is an image of a lot of the participation we had. It was a 2-day charrette, and everybody seemed to really enjoy it. There was a lot of feedback, and it was just invaluable for us to see everybody excited and being able to participate. These images right here kind of talk about, once we got a concept, we came back and put some things on paper to kind of show more about how the building would be oriented on the site. And then we started talking about a lot of other things like materials and colors and what would be conducive to maintenance-free type of construction for the school. And then we got into also play areas. Now, one of the big concerns with schools all the time is security and safety for students, especially in a preschool. So most schools, they have playgrounds that surround the school area, but we thought it would make a little more sense if we could combine that with the classroom spaces. And you can see the little opening between the classrooms, and that actually is a play area. And instead of just a grassed area, we thought it would be nice if we could put some fun things that would be utilized for special needs kids, things that anybody could go out and enjoy and have fun. And we got a lot of feedback about what did and did not work in those play areas from schools that have preschool now. And they talked about a lot of things that they would prefer to stay away from versus things they wanted to implement in this facility. This right here is a basic overall layout. You can see in the center we have an administration area and support staff on the right. And then we've got classrooms flanking on the left and on the right as well. And then a multi-purpose room in the center there for lots of specialty type classes. And you can also see at the end of that open play area between the classrooms, we're planning on putting some type of security fencing with gate doors that potentially would be locked, but it would be so you could egress through them with like some panic bar of some sort. This is an image inside, kind of depicting the things that we were looking at finishes. We've been through several different iterations of materials. We are using materials that are really complementary for preschool students. We're trying to keep things kind of soft and subtle, give them a lot of things that will keep them excited, a lot of graphics and things like that. And as Holly mentioned before, we're trying to include a lot of natural light into the spaces, which has been proven to support learning with all the kids. This is one image of the exterior of the building at the front entrance. It's a low slope roof in the front, and then we've got gable-in roofs on either side, and the materials are going to be a cementitious panel as well as some brick veneer. This depicts the play areas. We have 5 of them. It's 4 that are pretty much the same size between classrooms, and then at the back of the multipurpose, we've got a little bit different layout there. But what we were trying to put in some type of play equipment that was good for lots of things for students with sensory issues. And, you know, the interesting thing about the materials here are there won't be any mulch or cement. It's going to be specialty poured in place material to walk on. And they've got 2 or 3 different varieties of that. So it's shown to decrease potential for injuries if a child were to fall. And based on what age level is going to be in the different classroom wings, we've got different types of play equipment that has been selected for them specifically. This is a shot inside the classroom to show that there's a lot of natural light coming in through the windows, and we've got some specialty furniture in here. The ceilings are high to make it feel open and inviting, and we also feel like with the design utilizing some sort of high performance energy standards as we typically do, it's going to help maintain the facility, hopefully keep maintenance and costs down for operating long term. This is a image of the center section near the admin and the multipurpose space. And this is inside the multipurpose area here. So it's a big space that they can utilize for groups. They can have meetings after hours if they need to. We've got lots of lighting there, not only from one side of the space to the other. Neat little cubicle areas that students can sit, and there's like drawers underneath. They can put equipment and toys and things like that. Any questions?
That's not. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further input from the applicant? Seeing none, we have time now for public comment.
Sorry, she was going to come back up to answer questions after the presentation,
Oh, please do. Thank you.
because we had at least 2 questions.
Yep, I beg your pardon. Welcome back.
Yeah, my question has to do with the Green Globe versus the LEED. And so could you expand a little bit in terms of the construction of the program and what you're going to do in terms of those standards?
I will pass that back to the architect,
Okay.
Eddie. Thank you.
Okay, as I stated earlier, one of the things that we always do with every project is and we've been doing this for quite some time. Some facilities choose to use LEED and get certified. We know we've got a real tight budget with these 2 projects. So one of the things that we opted to do initially was to try to make sure we, number one, design the facility like we were going to meet LEED Silver, but not have it certified. Now, when you certify in LEED, that means that there's a lot of things that have to be done. A lot of materials have to be precisely selected. They can't come from very far from the site. I think 500 miles is the maximum distance. The contractor has got a lot of work they've got to do. They have to document everything, even stuff that they end up taking to the dump that's construction debris. So, you know, in trying to be sensitive to the budget constraints that we were dealing with, we chose to design towards LEED Silver, given an energy efficient building, but not have it certified. Now, one of the things that we looked at initially when we responded to the RFP is the RFP basically wanted us to incorporate green building practices. That is different from doing LEED or any other type of energy efficient, high performance type standards. And there's probably several things you could look at from one to the other. But one of the things that, we had discussed early on, if it became an issue and we had to do something, we felt like potentially going the way of chips would be a little bit better. Chips gives you the opportunity to do a couple of things. One is it's not quite as extensive as LEED, although you still have a lot of things you've got to do that are very similar to LEED. But chips, you can either do chips designed or chips verified. If you design towards chips, that's one list of criteria. And it's kind of similar to LEED because you still look at points. But when you do chips verified, that gets into a little bit more effort, and I think you have to have a third-party company come in and they verify several things that you've done to meet energy performance requirements. So we know there's been some correspondence back and forth about this high-performance buildings, especially related to that House bill. And, from what we saw initially, the House bill really didn't apply for school buildings. It was mostly for governmental facilities and things like that. So that's essentially where we are with the energy and high-performance standards.
I think you're right about our policy, but I think you'll find that the state piece is going to apply to all public buildings to include schools. But I take your point about the expense of the program. So I'm more interested is if you did a silver certification for LEEDs without a certification, what items off of the school point LEED system would you focus on? And I'm talking about water monitoring, I'm talking about energy efficiency, I'm talking about security, I'm talking about those sort of monitoring systems that should be part of it to begin with.
Right. Well, just to answer your question about security, we always factor security into the technology of all our schools. As far as monitoring of other things, we typically try to do that as well with building automation system where you can at any point get on a laptop or a computer and log in and see what's happening with your mechanical systems. And, what we have done in the past is all of the mechanical systems, the water, even electrical, we always are right on the cutting edge of being able to be certified through LEED anyway, because everybody is energy conscious. So that's the first thing we try to take into account when we start a design.
I think putting aside the bureaucratic costs associated with LEEDs, I think the things that they're asking somebody to do, that the cost of the implementation of it in the long run offsets the cost that it takes to do these things. And so I'm more interested in making sure that we do those sorts of things, whether it's security, water monitoring, energy efficient, that we even looking at solar on the roofs and looking at different systems to offset those costs.
Right.
And so that's what's missing. And those may be design pieces that somebody else has got to decide. But it seems to me that what I'm asking is whether or not the school and the architect are committed to do something like a LEED silver to include those sort of things we're talking about, but not necessarily the certification, to ensure that the taxpayers' money, in fact, in the long run, makes sense.
Right.
Ah, here we go. I know who this gentleman is. He's a good guy.
I knew you'd get him up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's been extremely, I have another question for him specifically, but we'll get to that later. Mr. Kiefer, good to see you, sir.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Should I wait for the speaker card or?
Oh, no, just your name and address.
Daniel Kiever, 914 12th Street, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Williamsburg, James City County Schools. In short, the answer to your question is yes. We are committed. We have, as a division, talked about solar on our buildings. We want to move forward with that. And as we continue in the design process for this building, we remain committed to being energy efficient.
I think the one thing that also struck me in the House bill is that you're now required to put EVs together. And so I know that you've been moving the school system towards electrical buses on that. And so charging those things up becomes a problem. So have you looked at any possibility for that, given the way the pre-K schools work?
Well, we have, I believe, between 4 to 6 electric buses in our fleet. You are probably familiar that our county school division from Stonehouse to James River sometimes presents some challenges with respect to the charging scenarios. We are hoping that that technology continues to improve, because it would be our goal to continue to add buses into our fleet. But at this point, we've struggled to see the return on investment.
And that's understandable, especially maybe there's other alternatives like battery charging. I guess my wish is, and that when you go to the board, that you absolutely highlight this notion of a lead silver and the implications of what that means to the downstream costs. One of the things I'm always struck with the school that I think it does a great job is it looks at 10-year capital funding that the county doesn't do. And so, any reductions in those costs, pushing those things, I think makes good sense for the county in the long run. And then my question specifically for you that I was looking forward is that the last time we talked on this, and I am pleased as hell to see that this is coming forward, is do you still plan to redistrict in terms of the elementary school populations with the return of classrooms for both the two places?
Absolutely, Mr. Polster. Part of our, frankly, a little bit of our chagrin relative to the fact that we needed to do 2 TIAs with this submission is we do intend to rezone probably all 9 of our elementary schools, frankly, in order to better utilize the space that will be available once those students are able to move back into the classrooms. So the timeline for that is predicated on when we can begin construction, when that project is slated to finish, and then how do we, as seamlessly as possible, go through the community dialogue relative to redistricting. Because I'm sure you're aware that once you start rezoning, a lot of people will have very specific suggestions and concerns relative to how those boundaries are drawn.
I know, but you've never hesitated about this on this issue with the 2 preschools as well as at the Lafayette. For that, I thank you, sir. One basic question, my colleague here was trying to figure out why the difference in staffing, and I sent him a note from one of your presentations that actually spells out that staffing. Because of the type of students you have, it's a much higher rate. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I can, and I think, let me maybe correct perhaps a misnomer. So part of what was in the SUP, I think, talked about parking spaces to accommodate 88 staff.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there are 88 staff in a building.
Right.
It means that we have additional parking on the Norge site that's just available to us to be able to put into the programming. So the specific FTEs or full-time equivalencies of staff are based very specifically on the needs of the students within the building. Our projection is to actually use all of the staff that are currently working across the 5 campuses. When we bring them together into 2 buildings, there's a likelihood that we would need to hire some additional staff, because our numbers would go from right now about 400 students up to the 502 range. So there will be some additional staff that need to be hired. But for instance, if I have a specific need relative to special education, I might have an individual person assigned to me as a student, and that would change the staffing number. So there will be a difference between the 2 buildings with respect to staff. Does that answer your question?
That does perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're
I have
welcome.
one more for the architect on the TIA, if I can. I'm not familiar with Clara Byrd, but I am familiar with the wait line at the Tohanna Middle School that stretches back miles and miles and miles and miles. And part of that is just simply because getting a kid back on a bus is an hour bus ride, so
Right.
the parents take that option.
Right.
Have you taken a look at the queue line for parents dropping off schools and how that will impact that at all?
We have, and we've spoken to Daniel about this as well. Everybody understands that these 2 sites were not initially planned to have 2 school buildings on them.
Right.
So it puts a little bit of a strain. The buses, I'll just hit Norge. The buses at Norge, it's going to have minimal disruption because they're still coming in the same way. They're just passing on back to the back of the site. The parent drop-off area is another issue. It's already heavily congested. So what we've tried to do is implement another drive lane, and I think Holly could probably speak a little better to that, but we've tried to rearrange the drive area so that we add a minimal of disruption to what's already there. But I know anytime there's additional traffic moving around, it's just cumbersome.
Well, especially for Norge.
That's right. That's right.
Let me also add that our Bright Beginnings program has a different hour or operational time than our elementary school programs. And right now, we've got 5 different Bright Beginning sites. 3 of them have one time and 2 of them have another. We try to offset those times from when the elementary schools open and end. And the Bright Beginnings program is a 4-hour program versus the 6 or 7 hour program at our elementary schools. There is some consideration as to changing the Bright Beginning hours yes, sir, to ensure that there is less congestion and pressure points for parents that are dropping off students in car lines and or our transportation with buses. So we believe we'll be able to address that because we will have some flexibility, we hope, moving from 5 sites to 2 and being able to capitalize a little bit on the transportation scenario, potentially changing the Bright Beginnings hours. Still to be determined, but that's a plan in place.
It's an approach and a strand.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
How do most of Bright Beginning students, don't you pick them up or are they dropped off?
Yes, that we do provide transportation, but many are dropped off.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
And I know this, we're not supposed to consider, how much are these buildings going to cost? Just out of ballpark, just curious.
Well, we're still working on that right now, as a matter of fact. When we started working on this project, it was based on the guidelines that was in the RFP. As we went through and developed the program, the building grew a little bit, and some of the needs grew a little bit. So we're trying to get everything finalized, and we're just about there now, so that we can get a new cost estimate and we'll have a hard and fast number. We've also been going through several iterations with the site, different things we've had to deal with, just underground utilities and things we've had to move and relocate, stuff like that. So we should have some information on that shortly.
Thank you.
Are these buildings, is 252 the capacity of these buildings?
That is what is planned for, yes.
Okay. So day one, they'll be at 100% capacity.
I don't.
No.
Is it?
80% because there's 400 in now.
Well, and there are also 65 to 70 students on a waiting list to be able to be entered into the program. We do anticipate that pretty close to day one of opening, we will be near 100% capacity with pre-K. You may be aware of an ANLAR study that was commissioned in 2021 by the 3 bodies to look at very specifically the needs of pre-K within our community. The number that the ANLAR report came back with was 650. So our initial discussion at the school division level and then took forward an idea in terms of our capital improvement program was to build 2 facilities or 1 single facility that would house 650 students. But finances being what they are, we were asked to go back to the table and perhaps lessen that, which is how we came up with just over 500.
The capacity issue, the wait list, when they had the presentation to the Board of Supervisors, they were specifically asked, and they said 50. Because I read the report, I was kind of taken back by the difference in the numbers.
On the wait list?
Yeah, because when the was ANLAR, was that the name of it?
ANLAR.
Yeah, ANLAR.
Yes, sir.
I read it, and it was when they presented to the Board of Supervisors. One of the supervisors asked how many people are on the wait list, and they said 50, and I was like, what is the number? Is it the 250? Is that the number of the people on the wait list, or?
No, I think the number 650 that came out of the report was looking at all of the potential children that could be housed and served by a pre-K program, some of whom are in private pre-K programs, some of whom are in our Bright Beginnings program, and then looking at projection of what that might look like in 2025 and 2026. So our wait list is fluid because if a student exits, we're able to bring someone in. And we also have to hold specific spaces because we are obligated under federal law that if a student has special needs, they get the priority in terms of enrollment.
Right. This is wonderful.
Any other questions?
No questions here.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Now we have time for public comment. If there's anyone who would, do we have any speaker cards?
We do, and there may be one or two that are associated with the schools, but I'll just start out just reading names. Then, is it Marcellus Snipes? No, doesn't. No, waved. Okay. Michael Bailey? Okay. Thank you. Donald Lay? No? Okay. Then that is all.
No comments? I'll close the public hearing and open it to discussion. Anyone? Or a motion?
I move approval. This is tremendous. This will give us age-appropriate facilities for these kids. And it's will also open up 31 classrooms in the currently elementary schools and do away with these, well, the boarding colleges, everybody calls them trailers. And I just think this is a great thing. And I think it's about time we had this program work for these kids, particularly the ones with the IEPs. So I move its approval. I don't know, do you want?
You move that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the motion, I think. Right.
I just heard move for approval. I think, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, we need two motions then, or we have two resolutions, one to motion
Mr.
for
Chairman, I'll
consistency.
move that it's consistent with the comp plan and that we recommend approval to the Board of Rezoning 24002 and SUP 24002, Bright Beginnings Pre-K Center at Clara, Byrd.
Procedurally, this should be two separate motions and votes, but you can do one before the other. It doesn't matter which one.
I beg your pardon. Mr. Everson's motion goes first. You move to recommend approval.
Yeah, Z24002. Is that what, how you want to do that? Okay. That's my motion.
All right. Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Dr. Ullman? Aye. Mr. Everson?
Aye.
Mr. May?
Aye.
Mr. Holdeman?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay.
I move that the Planning Commission find the application consistent with the comp plan.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Dr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Everson?
Aye.
Mr. May?
Aye.
Mr. Holdeman?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
We have to do SUP 24002, or is that what we just voted on?
We just voted on
Clara, Byrd.
Clara Byrd 002.
Getting ready to do Norge is the next.
Okay, so
Right.
the
next
the SUP was included in the vote on the Z24002. I thought I heard you say we had to do a vote on SUP 24002.
So it's the same, but you didn't mention it in your
Okay, I'm sorry,
thing, so
my mistake.
Ms. Parman, do we need a separate
you're
one for
fine.
the SUP? Okay, thank you. Third public hearing tonight is rezoning 24-0003 and SUP 24-0003, Bright Beginnings Pre-K Center at Norge Elementary School. Mr. LePacker, thank you for coming back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Ms. Holly Adams of Alpha Corporation has applied on behalf of Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools to rezone approximately 0.23 acres located at 7311A Richmond Road from R2 General Residential to PL Public Lands. Ms. Adams has also applied for a corresponding special use permit to allow a 42,000 square foot pre-K center at 7311 and 7311A Richmond Road. Staff finds the proposed conditions will mitigate impacts to surrounding properties and development. Staff also finds that the proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning and development and is consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. Section 15.2-2232 of the Code of Virginia states in part that no public facility be allowed unless the Planning Commission finds the location of the facility substantially consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Taking all factors favorable into account, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find this application consistent with the 2045 comprehensive plan and recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you all for your time this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for staff. And as you're aware, the applicant is available as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the Norge application? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing. Would the applicant care to make a presentation on this? Welcome back, Ms. Adams.
Evening again. If you have any additional questions on the building, the program, or the Norge site specifically, we are happy to address them.
Would you, for my sake anyway, go over the drive-in
Sure.
regimen?
That would work. So all vehicles, buses, and parents will enter from the main entrance, and the buses and staff will continue past the existing bus and staff parking for the elementary school, and it will continue to the rear. The staff parking lot is behind the proposed preschool, and then the buses will continue around what we have as shown as the stormwater management facility, and then both will exit the same way. Parents and visitors, once they enter off the main drive, they will take a left in front of the school, and they will go past the existing parent drop-off and the visitor parking, and then they will continue to the front of the Bright Beginnings building. I know queue has been a question. We did do the queuing calculation, and we are showing a queue with a double stack lane that it fully encompasses the preschool traffic within the new lanes. So the queuing should not back up onto the elementary school queuing, even though there are different operating times.
Sure.
You know. So were there any other questions?
Anybody? Thank you very much. We have time for public comment again. Any speaker cards, Ms. Stennis?
No.
Thank you very much. We'll close the public hearing. Open it for discussion and/or a motion.
Make the first motion that we find the project consistent with the Comprehensive Plan 2045.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Dr. Allman?
Aye.
Mr. Everson? Aye. Mr. May?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Make a motion that we approve the project Z24-003 and SUP 24-005 of the 003, I'm sorry, for the Norge pre-K school.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Dr. Allman?
Aye.
Mr. Everson?
Aye.
Mr. May?
Aye.
And Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
And motion carries 6-0.
That's it for public hearings. Thank you all for coming. Staff, thank you for coming.
Have a safe trip home. He lives in Chesapeake.
Planning Commission considerations. There are none to my knowledge. Anybody? No, thank you. Planning Director's report. Ms. Stennis.
The report is contained within your packet. I do not have anything additional to add. I believe Mr. O'Connor was going to mention tonight, if he was here, that you typically have a joint Board of Supervisors Planning Commission meeting. I believe it usually occurs in May. And I think he has made the or I know for a fact he's made the request to have that postponed to a later time.
Thank you very much. Planning Commission discussion and requests. Board of Supervisors coverage for May will be handled by yours truly. And I don't have any other discussions, or is there anybody else who has a?
I have a quick question. I guess it was a couple of months ago that we got this ordinance on industrial solar, and I gather the board has decided they want to do this as a policy. If I got that right? It's my understanding, though, that an ordinance would be more in cement, and that an applicant could have some predictability in their planning. Because I think about the pivot situation, the staff approved it, the commission approved it, and then it was shot down at the board 3-2. And I'm given to understand they spent well into six figures on this because we were functioning on a policy, how you feel about this rather than specific standards. Would it be inappropriate for us to ask the Board of Supervisors to reconsider for an ordinance that would be more predictable for people who are coming forward with these projects so that they have a clear understanding of what's expected? Because the ordinance, though I didn't agree with parts of it, it was very comprehensive and could easily put pen to pencil and calculators or computers, however they do it, and to figure out what it's going to cost them and if they can make a profit, which is what their point is. What does the other fellow commissioners think about sending a letter to the board encouraging them to do an ordinance rather than a policy?
Well, I personally hadn't given it any thought since I was at the meeting where they changed that direction. I'm not sure where we are with it. That would be interesting to know how far along we are with it. But
I think we ought to see where the board takes this policy. I mean, it wasn't an easy issue to begin with, and they realized how complicated it was as we went through our own discussions for it. And I think the other point that I've raised during this whole thing is you need to separate out the local approval and then what you do by permission by right, which is done by the SEC at the state level. And those regulations are being under review, and the policy of how that comes out is December 31st. And so from my point of view, the other shoe hasn't fallen. And the reason I mention that is half the hoo-ha over the Norge was the Dominion Power, who had it was a 25 or 35K kilowatt thing, had to put new power lines in the thing, which just upset everybody. And there was nothing to do about that to begin with. But anyhow, I think we ought to see what the board wants to do and go from there. And we have some history with our current conditions that are foundational. So it isn't just a how you feel type of a thing. We actually have some science in there and some criteria associated with that, of which a number of those things were placed into the ordinance. So I'm sure that the policy for the board that comes out will follow those same conditions that we've used to prove it, to include the latest one on Richmond Road. So I think we ought to let the board do what the board needs to do, and they can give us guidance on which direction we need to go, period.
anyone else? Let that matter drop for now. Thank you. Any other discussion or requests? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There's no policy.